I felt some sense of relief, which was weird, considering that the case was not manipulation of home, and at the same time enormous frustration, because the issue was not frustrating in its construction. Then Iratali was 22220 the GoFundMe payment, which came in from 3 donors. Waving her hand, my mother lightly pointed out that it was simply a preventive first step for something that we go stepped on in. Now, I told them financial help, especially now that I was aware of the full picture. I recommended seeing a financial consultant or negotiating a possible repayment plan with a banker. My father's time, at this time, wasn't going to give him the chance. Seeing my home come into view, I felt lightheaded. After picking up Lucas from school, we cuddled up in a blanket fort to watch a movie. For the first time in a long in the far distance. My phone soon buzzed again, just as I was tucking Lucas in for bed. This time it was a notification from my apartment's resident portal. Someone had tried to request being added to their list. My parents, with no second line their request, Laura, a declinement manager, called me first thing the next morning. She said my parents had come to her claiming they had to drop off something at the apartment but had forgotten the key. I had to tell Laura they had been, and still are, keyless. Oh, I see. Good. She replied, sounding somewhat relieved. It's just that I denied them this access after they insisted they got us the keys. I tried to get in touch with my parents, but both of the men never picked up the phone. As Lucas and I drove towards the house, I noticed their SUV parked in the visitor's parking spot, which made me out of the car. Before getting out of the car, I told Lucas to stay inside, and that I would be back and anxious, and my heart was racing as I approached the apartment. The apartment manager, Laura, met me at the door. She informed me had been sitting in the lobby for several hours waiting for me to arrive home. When I faced them, my mom started crying and said they had no other place to go. While maintaining eye contact, my father said, "We need to stay with Sarah to stay with things until we figure things out." Those words made my head feel dizzy. They had attempted to break into my apartment without my permission. I took a deep breath and said, "No." She responded by saying I was abandoning them, like I had claimed they did to me. My father started listing everything he had done for me while I was a child, all of his sacrifices. I remained firm in all of them. Again, I repeated that they were not allowed to stay with me. They had other choices they could pursue. They chose not to pay any attention. Ultimately, I turned my back and left. As I exited, I closed the door and turned head back. The next day, there was a storm of messages when I woke up. Some made me feel like I had to respond. Some were filled with anger. Simply put, there was a single sentence that read, "You will regret this when we are free for weeks," kept me in the dark for weeks. They had tried to get in touch with me through other means. I got a message from my brother Daniel in which our mother claimed to be heartbroken because she thought I had completely ended them for good. They tried to make it through these harsh circumstances, but might not make as always. The melodrama was exhausting and tried to get a glimpse of my brother. He looked fed up. He seems to have completely asking about them. He is doing better in Sprithdale. He is looking forward to playing soccer now. It is nice seeing him in a good frame of mind. Our family is slowly stabilizing and is relieved that the constant said to my parents isn't there to wave me down. As I was washing the last dishes on that fine evening, my phone buzzed to life. The building's front desk was calling, and the timid voice bore the name of the anxious security guard. Laura and Fordham parents were on a wild goose chase and were currently downstairs yelling for someone to let them up. She said they asserted that they had been invited, and for some reason neglected to retrieve their key, but she might feel my stomach twist. Under no circumstance should they be let in, I said. She calmed me down, saying that they were not getting past the lobby, which made me sympathetic, but also still on edge. I knew that I should looked out the window, but I did. Of course, their car was parked outside. They were not leaving. Lucas was already asleep, and I did not want to wake him up, so I turned the lights off and waited. It's been half an hour. I checked the building app, and sure enough, they were still in the lobby. My mom's arms were crossed, and by the look on my dad's face, one could tell he was annoyed, like this was some instead of an escalation of their behavior. I called Daniel. When he picked up, he sighed, and knowing full well why I was calling him. He said my parents had attempted the same thing at his place a week ago, but offered his help too quickly. He offered his help if I wanted him to come over, but I told him I would take care they're gone. Then I heard a loud knock on the door. I froze. They did exactly what I thought they would. I'm guessing they waited and intended to walk in and then slipped into the building. This time, the knocking was much louder. "Sarah, they want to talk to you. Just open the door for us," my mother said in a sweet but strange tone. I stayed quite like before. "Were your parent down?" said my father, sounding much more irritated. I waited, taking deep breaths to calm myself down. Then instead of opening the door, I called the police. While the officers spoke to my parents outside, I chose to make the officers made clear my parents were not welcome and needed to leave. As expected, my mother started to cry, calling me ungrateful and cruel, while my father whispered, "This isn't over," under his breath. Eventually, they left trembling while I watched their car drive away. After that day, I added my parents to the no trespassing list and began taking steps to file a restraining order, something I had to in order to protect Lucas. A week later, I received a me containing only a single line from my father. "We're selling the house and moving to Florida. I hope you're satisfied with your work." Staring at it for lowered my finger over delete button. That was the last message I received from them. No further control. No more guilt trips. No surprise encounters. Only nada. And for the very first time ever, I found a source of comfortancy following my parents' departure. I started feeling a sense of normalcy for the first time in years. They had left, and hadn't realized the toll their presence had on my mental health, in regard to what they intend to do next, how they react to my no and their relentless demands. With the lack of weight pushing down on me, I was free to focus on my new job and most importantly Lucas. Lucas was flourishing. He had made new pals. Andershin even stopped asking about my parents. Fellow asthmatics kind of difficult to understand how it is to breathe seldom. At first, I felt a touch guilty. Perhaps I should have salvaged something between him and them. But then I remember the countless conclusion to this conclusion then came to chose manipulation and entitlement over being authentic grandparents to him. Talking with Daniel had become a frequent ritual for both of us, and as weird as it sounds official. It was Ben him set a boundary between himself and our parents. However, we now had a common bonds. A collective awareness stemming from years of emotional manipulation. He shared with me that he too had been raised from some relatives, which skeptically sounded like what my parents would have scripted. All you need to do is forgive them. They are fighting their own battle, and you happen to be their offspring. No one gets to choose these bonds. Both of us have grown to bonding to such messages, and have subsequently decided to stop altogether. Then, I experienced what I would deem a surprising turn of I've email blue. My Aunt Lindy mailed me. Out of all my family members, she was the first to buy a parent's narrative. However, in this particular email, she sounded different, more upbeat. I just want to let you know that your mother rung me day, she texted. She was going on and abud how unreasonably you've been treating them. She told me that she slipped down. But she shared some information about their new house and how much she dislikes the heat in that part of the world. I perceived Heather she had indeed been struggling and she went mute. Then my heart thundered as I read the message 2 times, because it was obvious to me why my parents had never even began to pretend like they had been struggling. They fabricated every single detail. After pantomiming everything, including coming to my house during the witching hours and trying to emotionally blackmail the whole family into complete their financial goals, they had simply left. They were located, not just anywhere but Florida, which has been discussed as their ideal location for retirement for decades now. They were saved from being homeless. They were not as financially crippled as the rest of the world. Their plan was to rope me in one last time to serve as their financial parachute. When I explained this to Daniel, with pain in his eyes. Makes perfect sense, he replied. He just wanted an easy exit, and when you wouldn't furnish that for them, they had no choice but to paint you to F me. The emotion I had attached anger towards left me, and in its place I was simply relieved because it was done. The following weekend, I spent with Lucas soccer game that a soccer game to followed by ice cream. I know I took in innocent and abundant energy which helped me some bundle of energy from my decision to spend time with him. No matter how much guilt I chose to carry, no matter the level of emotional manipulation my parents tried, I protect night, placed him in bed, I placed in of wine, grabbed a glass of wine, and sat in my lowing myself to breathe. For the first time in years, I felt no tension in my shoulders and no anxiety in my stomach. It was all gone. I to my parents' excursion to Florida, I was motor with unfamiliar freedom for a month now. The burden that had been dragging me behind was finally gone. For once, the constant anxiety regarding an endless trips, impossible demands was no more. Lucas was doing exceptionally well. He had gotten over a few of his school projects and was making new friends. His soccer practice had also accelerated him enjoying playing the game more. In fact, every afternoon, he would go out and practice alone in a park right next to our apartment. Completely ignorant to the storm that's from my gut, I'd expressed my disbelief regarding my new job at Westbridge Consulting. In comparison to my other jobs, this one was far more challenging and paid a lot better than my previous jobs. My superior was quite supportive employers. He cared about his employees. For example, no one judged me when I had to work from home due to Lucas's bad asthma flare-up. Oh, how I love the absence of aggressive comments. Life is now a strange concept to me. Had things truly become as easy as they seem? I begin to dwell on that question until the anxiety of being thrown back to my parents' mess kicks in, which up and hasn't. Then it happened. One afternoon I got a phone call from Daniel, the one that had been waiting on the sidelines for so long. Daniel, this better be good, I said. Remember that inbox who bought a few weeks ago? Guess who just popped up? He said I didn't have just poppling. I didn't think too deeply. They are calling you right now. I sighed deeply. Yes, mother forwarded an entire essay detailing how they are by in Florida. My father's e-health is declining, and they are faced with unforeseen costs. You know, in spite of the fact that they recently purchased a house with a swimming pool, I massaged my temples. They've been reasoning that they did not directly request for funds. He went on, but that is precisely where those funds are intended. She kept repeating the need for family to care for each so love, to be able to live close to us again. And I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. This was exactly what I had been yearning for. For weeks they had been trapped in silence, but of course, they weren't to remain invisible for long. What do you plan on doing? I asked. Daniel let out a short laugh. I'm planning on leaving that alone. They made their choices, Sarah. We're just not useful to them anymore. It's some north they are now hoping we had forgotten. They had burned every bridge. He was rage. They were panicking. Most likely, they have come to terms with the fact that they will have to the children they'd always used as safety nets. I thought deeply about Lucas, reflecting on how much happier and secure he had become after my parents removed themselves from our lives. So here I choose to ignore the email. A couple of weeks after, I received another email, but this one was shorter. We don't understand why you're acting like this. We remain your parents after all. No matter the circumstances, we need to talk. I didn't bother reading the rest, I deleted it. I was done trying to explain myself to them, and unlike the other times, I did not give them the opportunity. Some days, I still felt the familiar that I knew all too well. This guilt that resurfaced after years of conditioning did not vanish overnight. However, each time I doubted myself of Lucas. He was secure, he was happy, and most importantly, I was constructing a future free from the burden of emotional debt for him and myself. This was what mattered most, and what broke the cycle. And there was absolutely no reason aside me to regret it. My parents were silent for months. At first, the absence of any communication sounded foreboding and sent shivers down my spine, but as time passed, starving, perhaps they had given up finally, maybe they had decided to finally. Jukas was thriving to move on with their lives. He told me about his school projects, which had evolved into obsession with space, and how he was planning off one day. His soccer team was doing well, and he was more confident, free. I was free too. What my parents had put me through had placed restrictions on my life I didn't comprehend until they had finally set me free. I did not have to deal with their manipulation anymore. My job at Westbridge Consulting was stable. My finances were finally in a place where I didn't need to scrutinize my bank account like a hawk before every growth was peaceful. Curled up on my couch one evening, I was mindlessly scrolling through emails when a notification began appearing on my screen. A new message had come. Read. The email subbed read final attempt. I pondered over it for quite a while before I clicked into the email. The contents of the email were blunt, short, and direct. We regret how this turned out. We misturned out. We do not know fight you and Lucas. We have no expectations, but if you ever have a change of heart, you know where to search for us. I found myself going over the text and waiting for the guilt to emerge only for the finding I think was happening. Instead, I felt relief. Not because I was planning on letting back into my life, but because I believed them. Because this time I was at you sure do what I needed to do. I did not. They tried pushing the butterplay, they tried using manipulations, lies, and control for years, and the minute they had lost the grasp of control, they acted as if everything was the way it was before. But I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't someone waiting to be caught. I was a mother who has worked hard the unhealthy cycle of dependency and selfishness. A mother who buzzed up to go life for her child. And I wasn't to go back. Lucas and I prepared a picnic and relaxed at the park. He dashed ahead of me, laughing and holding his arms out like an airplane. I rested on the bench and watched time warm my face. For the first time in my life, I had no anticipating calamitous events. I was not gazing behind me. I had no need to set myself up for a shock. I was simply controlling my existence. That feeling was probably the best in the word.